Scott, we don't have time for this. The Eye of Zombie Takeout is open. If I don't close it and get my TARDIS and the Master off this podcast will no longer exist. Hello and welcome to episode 537 of Zombie Takeout. The B-Movie and Cult Movie Show. I'm John.
And hello, senior year, I'm Scotto.
And before we get to this week's movie, of course, this is our last episode of the year, so we have to go through our top 10 lists.
Are we starting with the top 10?
Well, I don't have a worst list this year, do you?
Yeah, not really worth mentioning. There's only...
I've got like 3 dishonorable mentions, but that's it.
Yeah, so it's not really worth getting into. I mean...
So, like, call the worst 2 or 3 dishonorable mentions, and we'll go back and forth on those.
Let's see. Number 10, we got The Meg. But I got to give an honorable mention to Clue, if not an outright tie. They're both 4s. Do you want me to just go down my whole list?
I fell asleep for a second there. At 10, I have Ninja Scroll. I've seen it many times, and it's always just wonderfully ridiculous.
You know what? I think Ninja Scroll was pretty close to making it in too, but did not make mine. Number 9, I got Total Recall.
My number 9 is American Movie.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah, that one, yeah.
From 9 to 1 are all 5s for me.
We're still not into 5s for me. We're 4.5s at least now with Total Recall. Number 8 is Star Trek Beyond.
My number 8 is I Bought a Vampire Motorcycle. The only one I had to add after I'd put my initial list together.
That is my number 7, actually.
Okay.
I gotta love the madness of a small movie like that.
My 7 is Our Ticket to Hawaii.
That's my number 6.
Oh, wow.
And now from here on out, we're into 5s for me.
My 6 is The Meg.
Oh, okay. So that was my 10. My number 5 is Kong Skull Island.
Oh, wow. My number 5 is The Meg 2. Had to put them right together. I just slightly preferred the second one.
My number 4 is Little Shop of Horrors, the 1960 version. My
4 is Kong Skull Island. So our lists are very similar, just slightly different order. Not surprising.
Yeah. I think they'll vary. I think once we get to the top for mine.
Oh yeah.
Number 3, I keep wanting to say Matewan. Matewan.
My number 3 is also Matewan.
Or James Earl Jones tribute.
Yeah. Number 2.
Number 2 for me is Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
My 2 is Little Shop of Horrors.
And my number 1, one of the greatest comedies of all time, Airplane.
My number 1 is Star Trek Beyond. It's my comfort movie and easily my favorite Trek movie.
I mean, yeah, it is. It's definitely up there for me. Probably, you know, I'm trying to remember if I gave any Trek movies a 5. I think I was always a little hard on them, but even Wrath of Khan.
And dishonorable. Well, first off, I'll go with my honorable mention from the TV show, Newhart.
Oh, God damn it. I didn't do anything for the TV show.
I just had the one because, I just had to shout out Newhart because it is insane how well that show has aged.
Yeah. I did mean to get back to The Expanse, but I have not yet, but I definitely will. But right. Newhart, of course, without a doubt.
And on to dishonorable mentions. I just have a few. Freaked, which I just absolutely fucking hated.
It was my second least favorite movie of the year.
Hurricane Smith, which what's his name? I forgot his name already.
It was I want to say
Carl
Apollo
Weathers.
Creed. Carl Weathers.
Or Carl Weathers tribute.
It was
pretty
my
abysmal.
4th to the bottom, but it was a 3, so it's kind of like, that's why the whole bottom 5 thing just didn't make any sense for me, because my other 5th that would tying for 4th was Tenet for me.
See, my other dishonorable mention, which was a 3, is Tenet, just because it's probably the only movie we've reviewed that I felt insulted my intelligence.
It was just it was a dumb movie that thought it was intelligent, which is different from
Exactly.
a dumb movie that's just trying to be a dumb movie.
Right. Speaking of which, on to this week's movie, which
I
is,
got one more
oh,
dishonorable mention to
sorry.
make, though. Listomania.
Really? Interesting.
Yes. I mean, it is like middle of the road, 2.5,
Hmm.
but yeah, that this was a really good year.
Yeah, it was.
So yeah, 2.5 is enough to be on the bad list.
If Airplane was just a bit less problematic, I would have had a clean sweep of fives.
Did Airplane make it? Oh,
No, not
wait,
for me.
Airplane didn't make it to your list.
It was a 4.5, and I had to debate between that and Ninja Scroll, and Ninja Scroll just edged it out.
Oh,
And now on to this week's movie, which is from 1996, Doctor Who, the movie. We're closing the year out with it because it's set on New Year's Eve, and we've done enough Christmas movies.
I'm sure we'll find something next year to do
Oh,
Christmas.
I'm sure.
You know, we've never done a Hallmark or Netflix
I know.
Christmas
And I don't
movie.
want to, even though there is a Kwanzaa movie, though, that is in that realm. And we've never done a Kwanzaa movie.
There's one where there's like a time traveler in that, and I feel like that it's almost like the movie we're doing tonight.
And of course, that brings us to the impromptu plot summary. And this is a long one. Sponsored by Russell T. Davis, Stephen Moffat, Chris Chibnall, Christopher Eccleston, David Tennant, Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi, Jodie Whittaker, Shruti Gatwa, Billy Piper, Freema Agyeman, Catherine Tate, John Sim, Karen Gillan, Arthur Darville, Alex Kingston, Jenna Coleman, Pearl Mackie, Matt Lucas, Michelle Gomez, Mandeep Gill, Bradley Walsh, Tosin Cole, Sasha Dewan, and Melody Gibson, who would like to thank the makers of this film for butchering it so badly that they all had the opportunity to work on the proper reboot.
And also brought to you by Jelly Babies. Always nice to have a nosh after meeting an alien. All right, so we've got this sad, lonely old Time Lord who's well, for some reason he's the one who's forced to carry the body of the master.
Well, the remains. It looks like ashes initially.
Yeah, the remains of the master to his final resting place because he's out of lives and
And they always had that sort of frenemies situation, like Professor X and Magneto. They respected each other just as much as they hated each other.
yeah.
So it made
Well,
sense.
the doctor always, because he doesn't like to be alone, the only one of his kind
Yeah,
left, and wouldn't mind
right.
having another one of his kind there.
Hmm.
It's just that the master is an asshole
Right.
who doesn't give a fuck that he's the only one of his kind. It would
Hmm.
rather just be a god
Right.
among children or something.
The untempered
But
schism drove him mad.
for some reason, he's the one that is condemned to perform this task to move the master's remains to their final resting place. But of course, it was just a trap that the master somehow planned. I'm not sure if he's out of lives, how he got this other thing going.
I don't know
But
if it was planned or just an accident that he capitalized on.
no, it seemed like he did something with time and
Okay.
somehow some timey-wimey thing that he
Oh, he
somehow
broke out of his somehow. And this is an issue. I'll say right now, I love this movie way more than I expected to. But this is the one little issue I had. His essence, I'll say, took the form of a snake, like a translucent silvery snake, which was incredibly cheesy. And it
yeah.
somehow, he broke free of the urn he was in and fucked with the TARDIS. Now I remember.
Well, right. And before that happened, there was something going on with time where it was there was some sort of anomaly that he
Mhm.
somehow caused. They
Uh,
don't really explain how. It's kind of the Austin Powers, and don't you try to think too much of this
yeah.
because
And
it was
both
plot.
classic and new Who don't do that all the fucking time. They
They
fuck with
do,
canon on a whim.
they do, but they at least try to have an explanation. They know
Yeah.
what they're doing at that point. I feel like this, they really they didn't even know what they were doing. Like, if he's out of lives, he's out of lives. How does he become a snake? How does he become the T-1000?
How does the Doctor still have lives when he's already run out of them?
Well, they came up with something where
Yeah, I
he
think they.
got
Yeah.
re-dipped and like
Mhm.
renewed, you know?
Uh-huh. Anyway, yeah, he.
So,
Yeah, so
this
they
doctor
crash in San Francisco.
and party like it's all the way into the future of 1999.
Because the movie was made in 1996 or released.
And man, yes, very futuristic. He kind of lands in the middle of this gang fight where nobody seems to be able to hit anybody with the gun. I
Stormtrooper
mean,
rolls.
just like six guy dudes with like auto. Well, first he's firing at a car, the street kid,
Yeah,
and he misses every shot.
it's a
And
TV
then
movie. They can't kill anybody.
like doesn't even hit the car, doesn't even damage the windshield, doesn't even like he's just firing at them. The guy drives away, and then there's like six other dudes that all have like pretty much full on automatic
Hmm.
weapons that just fire away, and of course they somehow all miss. Until the TARDIS shows up, and of course, I like the idea of the TARDIS being TARDIS armor, yes.
Yeah,
Plot armor, no.
Mhm.
At least that level of plot armor is a little bit much. Um,
I think it's the first time we've seen that happen, though. So I enjoyed it.
so yeah, I enjoyed the TARDIS armor.
It materialized in front of the one gang member and saved him.
I appreciated that they had Sylvester McCoy in there as the
Mhm.
old Doctor, but he had to go.
Oh yeah.
He just had to go. He just wasn't. I mean, it was nice that they brought him back in for continuity. Why they cared about continuity at this point, I don't know. Um, but he was there and old and in his like little hobbit hole of the
Uh-huh.
TARDIS, and he gets shot in the middle of the shootout and goes through a very long and dramatic death,
Mhm.
where they call in this real doctor, Earth Doctor, to operate on him. She's lost in his physiology though, and winds up killing him pretty much. And he goes through a very long regeneration process, winds up wandering around the hospital somehow after, scaring the shit out of the morgue worker, and eventually finds the doctor who killed him pretty much. Well, killed that doctor. He's
Uh-huh.
now regenerated, of course.
Uh-huh.
And of course, even after she sees his blood cells and understands that he has two hearts and saw that he's regenerated, doesn't somehow believe his story. That there's another alien like him out there
Well,
that
that's a
could destroy the
common theme in
world.
science fiction. Humans will come up with anything to avoid acknowledging the thing that they don't want to believe in.
Treating the guy that is somehow like what 30 years younger,
Mhm.
had the same scope in his chest
Yeah.
that he had to pull out. She saw his blood through the microscope and was like, nope, nope, this is too much.
Mhm.
Get out of here. That was pretty damn funny, actually. So finally, he convinces her. Actually, I think because the master shows up,
Mhm.
then she finally believes him, and they go on this. The MacGuffin is, of course, some part of an atomic clock that's being unveiled at midnight during the Y2K, of course, and he needs that to
The master
undo the
opened the
damage.
eye of the TARDIS,
Yeah,
and it's causing the molecular structure of the Earth to destabilize, and they have to close the eye of the TARDIS, and they need and they need an atomic clock to do it. So it's a heist to get this.
just a piece, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, I
and
guess
I
it's probably the brain of the atomic clock.
oh, that's right, because they couldn't get it to work after he did that.
Mhm.
And the poor guy who built it is just left there saying, "What the fuck?"
Right.
But of course, they they succeed, and then they kind of succeed. He has to do some cheating to succeed, but hilarity ensues.
I liked how McGann pulled off that opening exposition. Nice job of like just front loading like I'm a 900-year-old alien, in the whole Gallifrey thing in the Master. But we're hearing McGann and looking at McCoy.
Yes, that was confusing at first. Like, wait, who's the old guy? Oh, that's McCoy.
I liked the 900-year diary on his desk. It was a cheap joke, but I got a kick out
Yeah.
of it. I just, the whole snake silver ooze thing with the Master is really the only thing I didn't care for. Although, again, classic and New Who has been ridiculously cheesy and dated at times. You could go back to the Tennant era, even the early Smith era. It's going to be dated and ridiculous.
It was they were going for some T1000,
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
there.
That's true. And
Uh,
it was of that era. That's a good point.
it's about 4 years after
Yeah.
T2.
Right. I'm glad that the gang fight just involved guns and no cheesy choreography with knives or other some such.
Well, that takes training and shit, I mean,
but I mean,
that's a whole other
realistically,
deal.
they would just have guns, and yes,
Yes.
stormtrooper aim.
Oh man, worse than Stormtrooper aim. I mean, Stormtroopers could at least kill Owen and Baru.
Yeah, fair. But that was off camera.
That's true. Someone should do the scene of them, like, how many times it took to.
I'm sure somebody's animated on YouTube.
God damn it, you missed again.
I liked the one doctor explaining the other doctor, not the main one, Grace. Explaining the two hearts on the X-ray as a double exposure.
Yeah, I guess that is a way to do it.
The human will just will just grasp at anything that makes sense to explain this thing that doesn't make sense. I had to laugh at the obvious plug for The Amazing Race, which I'm guessing was launching at this point in time.
Ooh, well, I missed. What was that?
The doctor who pointed out the double exposure said he had to be home in time to see The Amazing Race.
Oh, wow, it's been on that long?
Somewhere around that, yeah.
I can't believe that. I thought that was like a Survivor kind of
I
thing.
don't. Well, Survivor's been on for just as long. They started in like
Really?
the late '90s. I was living in my previous house when they launched and it was a couple of years before we moved.
I'm seeing The Amazing Race started in 2001,
Okay,
which that is around the time I remember Survivor being on
maybe.
too.
So it's odd because I could have swore he said The Amazing Race.
Yeah, maybe they had something in the UK.
Maybe. But it just seemed like an obvious plug, because if I recall correctly, this was a CBS film.
Okay.
I loved the doctor reviving on the operating table. It gave McCoy a chance to do some really good physical comedy.
Yeah, just the whole like, don't do it, just popping back up.
And that when they brought the audience in to watch the surgery from the deck above.
Oh, of course, there always has to be this is a very special, thing, so we're going to have the bigwigs watching.
Loved seeing Will Sasso as the morgue worker.
Where's he from? He
Mad
did
TV?
look familiar. What's up?
Mad TV.
Yeah. I don't remember him from Mad TV.
Might have been one of the later cast members, not like
Okay.
early.
Oh, yeah, you're right. He was like post Artie Lang, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't look it up, but
He was the one who was
hit
kind
me.
of the Artie Lang of that second group.
Yeah. Which might have been close for that time. Maybe just before it.
The way they treated the Master's essence, he was basically a parasite.
Yeah.
I mean, New Who, he can do something similar, but they have the tooth and the the giggle. His spirit or his essence or whatever the hell you want to call it is somehow in this gold tooth. So that's a thing that they've carried on. But basically making him a parasite was a little iffy. I liked the regeneration scene. It was better than just energy spouting out of the head and hands.
I don't know. I thought
It looked dated.
was kind
It
of
was
cheesy
90s.
with the Frankenstein's monster thing going at the
Oh
same time.
yeah, but the CG was dated because it was '96. But I like that we saw it instead of just the energy that they do now, or some of the ridiculous shit they did in the classic era, like The Watcher.
I mean, I thought the effects here were, I mean, even worse than for its time. I really thought some of this was kind of like an 80s
No.
BBC
No,
thing.
no, no. The effects were state of the art for TV at this time because Buffy was a year later, and I remember some of those effects, and they didn't look nearly as good.
Really?
And Buffy was known for good effects for the time, so because they used a
I
lot of
mean,
CG.
the
Um,
things like the eye and everything, I mean, just some really bad, like obvious paper mache
this was
rocks.
almost 30 years ago. You're not remembering '96 TV effects. I am because again, Buffy sticks in my memory.
Maybe
Um,
just spoiled from Star Trek, you know?
maybe. Um, I like that the doctor punched down the morgue door. The Doctor has a long history and a continuing history of pulling superpowers out of his ass.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what that was about him just punching his way through the door.
So, I mean, how he does that all the time. So I'm fine with him having super strength for some ridiculous reason. It was a
Yeah,
good gag. I liked him seeing his new face in several mirrors, but yelling "Who am I?" was just a bit over the line for me.
of course.
And at the time, it made no sense because he's done this 6 times already. You should be used to it. But we later find out that because he died on an operating table, it caused amnesia.
The anesthetic,
Well, it was the
or
anesthetic. That's right.
anesthesia, the
Right.
anesthesia, like almost made it so he died. You know,
Right.
like it almost hindered the regeneration
Yeah.
altogether.
And it caused amnesia. I loved Eric Roberts as the master. He was just so incredibly campy and over the top.
And they they put him. I swear it was like the same outfit for the villain from Flash Gordon.
Oh, and it was amazing. I mean, he was great throughout, but that last scene where he just commits to the camp was just
Yeah.
glorious. Like, that was Jeffrey Combs level. Narratively, I get why the Doctor still had the toe tag on after he regenerated, but it just didn't make sense from a character standpoint. Why wouldn't you pull it off?
Uh, that I had no problem with. It was just a goofy thing. Like, why was he walking around barefoot either? You know, I mean,
Mm.
my favorite scene was the kid discovering the TARDIS.
Yeah,
It just da, da, da.
I appreciate that nobody said it's bigger on the inside.
Oh, you know, I kept waiting for it, and you're right. It never happened.
Nobody said Doctor Who, and nobody said it's bigger on the inside. I don't know if either had been a cliche at that point. It might be a new Who thing.
It might be.
Yeah, I did like Chang Li, the gang member, walking in and then just walking right back out.
I think Dr. Grace actually explained the physics of the TARDIS and why it would be larger on the inside without. I mean, she went into like the whole round, which I liked. It was a whole roundabout explanation of, oh,
Mhm.
it creates a
Yeah.
perceptual, you know.
But when Chang Li goes in, it's like the meme of, the kid, the infant, or not, the toddler who just walks into a room, shakes his head, and walks back out. Chang Li basically did that. He walked in, his eyes bulged, he walked right back out.
Just
And
fuck this shit.
yeah, and then he did the walk around, which
Yeah.
Millie Gibson did as well. They've kept that up. I'm glad they didn't just suddenly turn him into a good guy.
Yeah. It was,
Like he was a self-interested asshole pretty
yeah.
much the entire movie, even though he ended up being on the Doctor's side.
Well, until he found out that the Master was just going to destroy all of humanity.
Still a self-interested asshole. That
That was
was
a bridge he could not
yeah.
cross.
Um, I liked the sword in the stone moment.
Yeah, somehow Chang Li had was able to use the TARDIS, and the TARDIS liked him and
Yeah.
let him do so much,
Mm.
which I'm not sure why. I'm not even sure how the Master got into the TARDIS in the first place without
He's the master.
Chang's aid.
Um, and the TARDIS has been well established as having a mind of its own.
Sure.
So I can totally buy that it likes this person for no reason. Or it picks up on something that it likes about this person. Um, the Master doesn't really have rules. They've never given the Master rules.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with him somehow sneaking into the TARDIS. I'm very happy that they didn't commit to the romantic subplot. They teased it, they head faked it, but they didn't commit.
I mean, they would have if the plot hadn't gotten in the way of it.
Mm-hmm. And this was intended as a backdoor pilot, so I feel like setting up that relationship, unless she became the full-time companion, would have been a little iffy.
Yeah.
They didn't decide it was a one-off until it was a flop.
You knew she wasn't going to be the companion because he talked about her achievements.
Right.
And at least if you're thinking of this logically, who knows what they would have done if she were popular and they would have just gone on with it.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that he was talking about things that she was going to achieve, she couldn't have done that if she was fucking around with him,
Yeah. Right.
in time and space.
Mm-hmm. Now, they do go into the whole Doctor being half human thing. I think that came from Classic.
I think so too.
It's since been disproven with the whole timeless child thing.
How does Chang Li just fit into this high society function without anybody going, hey, it's like a street kid just kind of wandering around with his leather jacket?
I don't ask questions like that with a TV movie, especially Doctor Who. I feel like Doctor Who is one of those franchises that people take way more seriously than they should. Way more seriously than they take the franchise itself.
I can give it a lot of leeway, but I think this they went over in a few places. And of course, the ending of this.
Well, we'll get there. I liked that the eye of the TARDIS being open was playing with the molecular structure of the Earth and breaking it down. I got a kick out of that little twist. I liked the Doctor walking through a glass door. Didn't care for the boingy sound effect.
And why wouldn't it have? They've always, kind of been tongue-in-cheek with the sound effects.
Fair. Liked the Master's weakness for fire extinguishers. That was an interesting angle. The Doctor shot him with a fire extinguisher and it kind of paralyzed him. I like what they do with the burn on her arm. The Master spits on her, basically, and burns her arm. He can apparently spit acid.
Yes.
They ignore it. Like, I thought they were just going to kind of forget about it, which was slightly annoying. But it came back at the end, which I thought was nice.
And who knows what this power actually is that the Master had, where he can spit acid and then kind of possess through the wound.
The Master is the only person who pulls superpowers out of his ass more than the Doctor.
I mean, they are Time Lords. They are kind of like gods in the end.
I love the whole thing with Gareth and, choose the second question on your exam instead of the third. Because he eventually goes on to develop a way to stop earthquakes. I gotta hand it to Paul McGann. Incredibly charming in the role. Brilliant Doctor.
Yeah, I think with some better writing and acting, this he probably could have done this,
And he has continued. We'll get to that in sequels and remakes. I like the fire hose escape after they steal the brain from the atomic clock. That was clever. He grabs a fire hose, climbs up a ladder, and they use that to rappel down the side of a building.
Probably one of my favorite lines of the movie was when he pulls the fire alarm and she's like, why did you do that? And he's like, make things interesting.
Classic Doctor. I mean, that is a Matt Smith or Tennant line.
Yeah. Oh, even Eccleston. could definitely see Eccleston do
Yeah,
that.
yeah. After this, McGann is in like my top 4 or 5 doctors. I can't put him above Tennant, and I think Capaldi and Schutte, of course, are better, but he's in the top 5 easily.
Just didn't have enough to see him. I guess I'd put him above Eccleston. I didn't really like him that much,
Mm.
but I think he had some of the same problems. But then again, it was just more of a writing thing where he's like, you know, trying to get with the girl right away.
Mm.
That just seemed very weird and undoctorally.
Some versions of the Doctor don't jive with different people. Smith is incredibly popular. I don't like him. A lot of people don't like Capaldi. He's one of my favorites. So everyone's got their favorites. Speaking of the acting, I wasn't very impressed with Daphne Ashbrook, who played Grace, the Doctor, until she turned evil.
Yeah,
I loved the evil turn.
that was a good turn.
Chang Li suddenly learning his lesson came a bit too suddenly, but I'm
Very,
glad
very.
they had the guts to kill him, like right afterward.
Well, I mean,
And yeah, he comes back. You gotta expect that. But like he learns his lesson, he realizes, oh, I'm fucking up, and gets his neck snapped immediately.
yeah.
He doesn't have the heroic moment, which was good.
It's not you don't get credit for it though if you're just gonna do
It's
the
it's
magic
you had
Deus
to
Ex
expect it.
Machina.
Of course they were going to do that. It wasn't. I mean, yeah, I would have preferred it if they both were left dead, but I knew a '96 TV movie wasn't going to go there.
It definitely lost a brain from me for doing that because it's kind of unforgivable.
But it's expectation management.
Yeah.
It's unfair to even expect that. It's like we were talking about. This is a tangent, but with the last season of Star Trek Discovery, we were both saying we would love it if the Federation loses, but we knew it wasn't going to happen.
That's different though, That's trying to push it into like a new, territory. This is they brought death into it and then just decided, oh, I could just go back to when the terrorists shot the Doc Brown and
Do you remember TV movies in '96?
I stayed away from TV movies in the 90s.
Yeah, that's
Very
why,
few I
because
wanted
none
to
of them would have
watch.
had the balls to do that. So expecting that from this one is unrealistic.
So, but then don't introduce that,
mm,
Like trying to say we're going to be so extreme and push this so hard,
yeah,
and then he's just going to go back and he's going to make it all better again.
fair.
None
Maybe
of
just
it,
knock him out.
none of that made any sense either. If he went back in time with the Master still there, they're in the envelope of the TARDIS, so nothing would change. They would just be in the TARDIS at another time.
Superman flew around the Earth
Yes.
backwards.
It was probably almost as bad as that.
Unless it's called Primer, I don't quibble with time travel rules or what things are going to happen because it's all ridiculous and silly. I liked the chaotic montage when the Master was taking the Doctor's regeneration powers.
Right. Was that when they're... No, it wasn't going backwards. It was the things falling apart,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. When he was stealing his powers, he just got really chaotic. I liked the Humanian error on the controls of the TARDIS. That made me laugh. The Master's death was wonderfully cheesy and over the top.
What a world.
Sequels and remakes.
Sequels and remakes. Well, of course. I mean,
14 seasons of the modern / new era. I think everything up through Whittaker is now, or no, 14, 10 and second run is now called the modern era, and Schutte and onward, it's season 1, so it's New Who.
right.
But yeah, and then of course Paul McGann and Eric Roberts went on to reprise their roles in Big Finish audio dramas, as have many previous Doctors. Highly recommend those if you haven't checked them out and you like Doctor Who. I've listened to a few; they were great. It even got me to like a Colin Baker story, and I've always
wow.
hated Colin Baker.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of hates Colin Baker. Well,
Yeah, he
his
was kind
version of the Doctor.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Underbrands.
A lot of brains.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was cheesy. So is the show. But it was also just beautifully campy. I'm going 4.5.
Well, I think this is bad even by episode Doctor Who standards, and especially if they're trying to make a movie out of it, they could have probably uh, done a better job at doing this. Okay, they definitely could have, but it's the worst movie we've seen this year. It makes the bottom of my list at one and a
Wow.
half.
And what have we learned?
Well, guess you guys weren't ready for this, but your kids are gonna love it.
And I learned that I really have to check out those Big Finish audio dramas with McGann and Roberts.
I wouldn't mind hearing that either, because I think he could have. He probably would have done a good job with some better writing.
And that's it for Doctor Who the movie. Until next year, when we'll be reviewing The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. Have you seen it yet? Or are you
No,
holding
no, I
off?
have not. I was holding off.
I've skimmed it a little bit. It's not as surreal as a lot of Gilliam stuff, which
Really?
surprises me. I mean, it has its moments. Again, I haven't watched it, but I just kind of skimmed through the timeline. It doesn't look as surreal as Gilliam usually is, which will be interesting. Until then, of course, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there you
Happy
are.
holidays.
Happy holidays.
And there you are.